Welcome everybody to another episode of the Game Global podcast. This is the show that's just basically aimed at giving you as much value as you can possibly handle to help you max out and smash your dating, social, sexual life goals. I'm Kieran Callum, and with me today is Mr. Joseph Elvin. Hello, Joe.
What's up? Hi.
Hello. G'day. G'day. So, Joe, for anybody who doesn't really know who the heck you are, could you just take a little moment to, to inform them, to school them, if you will?
Well, I used to live in London. Me and Kieran pretty much got the ball rolling with Game Global. We used to be under the brand of Global Alpha Males. We recorded, 10 to 12 podcasts. And many more, probably lots of content together. We did the 4 weeks to Unstoppable Confidence course together, and we're really excited with how last year went with the growth of Game Global and using the different game cities, Telegram and Facebook groups. And now I don't live in London anymore. I've been for the last 2 years traveling the world, working remotely as a writer and seducing women of every culture and sharing my insights on how all that works over the Game Global networks.
Okay, I see. So now that everyone's caught up, Mr. Elvin, what element of seducing women would you like to share with the listeners today?
Well, I believe that you briefed me. We were talking about just approaching women and how to do that correctly, and I suppose just covering everything over perhaps the first couple of minutes, because although it's impossible for a woman to get to know you properly over that 2 minutes, and for her to fall in love with you during that time, you can certainly blow yourself out within that amount of time if you don't do some fundamental things correctly.
Okay, so first thing I'm gonna say, and then I'll let you sort of lead into your sort of process, let's call it, is one thing I say to guys is when you're approaching a woman, you have to do it as though you have value to offer. And they say, what the hell do you mean? I'll explain. Well, actually, let me go back. So most guys tend to approach a woman like they're a homeless person begging for scraps. They're like, excuse me, I'm a bit of a loser, but could you please just possibly give me the time of day by talking to me? And it sounds nice and cute, but if you approach a woman like she's above you and you're beneath her, it's just not really gonna work. So what I basically say is, I say to guys, let's say I gave you £10 million. I give you £10 million, and I say, now what you need to do is you need to go and speak to some random woman, some point woman now, but you're going to talk to her for 15 minutes without telling her why you're there. At the end of the 15 minutes, you're going to give her that £10 million. I then say to them, would you be scared to speak to this woman under those circumstances? And they say, no, I wouldn't. Then I say, why? And they say, well, because, I've got something to give her. I'm like, that's exactly my point. And then also, if you did have £10 million to give to some woman, when you were talking to her, you'd be so sure of yourself and so comfortable that she'd be what's going on with this guy? Why is this guy just so self-assured? And she'd find it really intriguing, and she'd most likely stick around. And then even if she actually didn't, let's say you go up to give a woman £10 million and she's dumb enough to tell you to go away, you'd be thinking to yourself, you dumb bitch, you just missed out on £10 million. So I say to them, that is the first thing. You have to go in there that you've got value to offer. What are your thoughts?
So I understand the concept of someone, they wouldn't be nervous if they knew they had that £10 million check in their back pocket. However, I think you said without telling them why you're there, right? And for me, in most
No,
circumstances.
that's just in the hypothetical. That's just in the hypothetical situation. I'm not saying that they should approach a woman and not say why they're there. I'm just saying, like, if I gave them £10 million and said, speak to a woman for 10 minutes without telling her why. So you're just going to be talking to her for 10 minutes and she's like, why is this man talking to me? And then at the end you give her £10 million. You'd have no fear.
But I bet if you started the conversation was like, girl, I got $10 million or pounds, then it would be even easier. If you told her.
No, it would be, but like...
Yes.
No,
okay.
of course.
But apart from that, of course, I agree. And I agree with like that being a big problem. And even if they do go up, like you said, like their body language and just the whole way they approach communicates that then they'd have nothing to offer, and that they are literally the one who is lucky to be taking up the girl's time, and that is bad.
Yeah. Well, exactly. That's my point. And then that's the whole mindset behind basically not telling her about the 10 million. Because let's say if you're some absolutely awesome, amazing guy who's conquered X, Y, and Z, you're not going to walk up to her and say, hey, I'm an absolutely awesome, amazing guy who's conquered X, Y, and Z. You're just going to kind of radiate.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. So what's your process? How does Mr. Joseph Elvin, international Lothario extraordinaire, seducing women of all cultures, how does he go about doing that? What is your process for approaching women on the street?
Okay, so we're talking about daytime specifically throughout this whole podcast, because for sure there are different principles. Because I would say mostly because if you're in a bar or a nightclub, then a woman is more or less expecting to be approached. So some of the principles during the daytime might not apply. But if I was to see a woman during the daytime, the first thing I would do is I would make sure physically that the physical way that I do the walking up to her is correct. Okay, so that means you don't sneak up on her from behind, or you don't get super close into her personal space before you start talking, right? You get in front of her, and if she's walking, that might mean you have to like speed up, right? And you know, get in front of her, and then from there, I'd say it's as far as the very first thing that comes out my mouth, it's a two-step process. First is to get her attention, right? And perhaps it needs some preamble about like a statement of empathy, okay? So if she looks very shocked or if she looks very busy.
Okay, so a statement of empathy being...
So, for example, if you stop her while walking, probably you need to explain like, I'm stopping you. I would say that perhaps this is a bit out of the blue, or something like that. Perhaps this is a bit surprising. Something along those lines. So what this does is that it shows that you have like social acuity. You're not some crazy person on the street. You understand social dynamics, and that stopping someone while they're walking down the street with their hands full of shopping bags isn't like a completely normal thing. So that's what that does. It also gives her...
So yeah, to anyone...
Sorry?
No, carry on.
Okay. What this also does, this gives her brain like a second or two to process like the interruption and what's happening. Okay? Because if you start with like blah 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 and the second part, which is your reason for being there, if you start that when she's not really processed what's going on, then she might not even like hear or comprehend what you're saying, right? So these are the main two reasons for doing that. Now, I'm not saying you always need to do that, and with experience you'll learn when this isn't needed, but if I was speaking to a complete beginner, I would suggest that they do this, the statement of empathy, and then from there I would almost always explain the reason I'm there, and that would be because I think she looks very good, and I wanted to meet her and get to know her. All right, and there are many different ways that you can articulate this. So you don't need to be a robot, and often I will try to find something in particular that was unique about her appearance and what I liked about her. So if she looks very sporty and athletic, or if she looks very fashionable, or if she is like dressed for like a big night out, something like this. If there's something in particular that caught my attention, I would mention this.
Well,
but the main thing is that you explain why you were there.
Okay, so
because it is not necessarily known by the woman why you were there, and her assumption might not be that you're there to flirt with her. It might be that you're there to interrupt her day with something bad, to sell her something, to ask for money, to ask her to join your religious cult of Joe, or anything. So this is important that she knows why you're there.
Right, so a couple of things. So just for anyone who's listening, the statement of empathy, just to clarify how important it is, because it's very important. So women are very, very acutely aware and concerned with social norms and what is considered right, what's considered appropriate, what's cool and what isn't. And approaching somebody on the streets, it breaks a social norm. The only people who approach people on the streets is people who are working for various companies, they're advertising or collecting for charity or whatever. People don't do it on a day-by-day basis. So you have to kind of get past her innate adverse reaction to that, to thinking that you're a weirdo by doing it, by letting her know that you understand that the situation is somewhat unusual. However, you're doing it because of X, Y, and Z. As well as what Joe said, whereby you give them the time to actually process the situation, you're also letting them know that you're not some weird crazy person. It's I'm cool, you're cool, we're both cool, but I have to speak to you because of blah blah blah. Now, going on to what you said
before we
about,
move on, because I know there are some people who argue that a statement of empathy, you don't need to do that. You just need to set the frame, and if you think that it's not a strange thing to do, then it isn't. All right. So the thing is, you need to understand it might not be strange for you, but for most women out during the daytime, it is. Having said that, there are occasions, and this happens quite commonly when you're a white man living in a part of Asia where not many tourists visit, as I am at the moment. I live in Jakarta. Sometimes you'll have this eye contact with a girl, and you'll smile and she'll smile, and at that's an example of sometimes you could just be hi, I like your outfit, and she'll say thanks, and then you can say, my name's Joe, and then it just happens naturally. But definitely, if you running up to her and interrupting something that she's doing, then I would always suggest that you go with a statement of empathy, just so it shows that you have the level of social acuity to be given the time of day.
I hear you. So you touched on also telling them something that you observe about them as well. Now, something that I've noticed, works really well is that, from my experience, women really, 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 they love to be kind of psychoanalyzed, and they love to feel understood. They absolutely adore it. So, for instance, I remember once, I think I might have been with you actually, we were in a club and there were some girls, and there's this one girl who had really great posture. She just genuinely did. There was something about the way she was standing and the way she was carrying herself, just her posture. I was she a dancer? So I went up there, and I can't remember what the hell I said, but I said, can I ask you a question? Words to that extent. And she turns around, she's oh, here we go. Here's another guy. All right, what you got to say? So I said, look, you have got fantastic posture. Are you a dancer? And then they all started laughing because she was a ballet dancer. And I nailed it. And what I've noticed is, you can say to a woman, you look like you're this kind of person. You look very creative. Are you a painter? You look, you look quite,
No.
Are you a
Sure.
painter? You're an artist. You're a sculptor. Like that kind of stuff works incredibly well. Like they like to feel like they were walking along, and then you sense their energy, their essence. You know, like, oh my God, I have to come speak to you because there's something about you that's speaking to me. So hello, who are you?
Yeah, and that transitions really well into the next thing that I do. Once you've like landed the plane and she like understands what's going on, and you've done your introduction. I call it landed the plane because it could be rocky, right? Like it could take a couple of attempts to get her attention or whatever. That's why I use that metaphor. And after there, and like she's agreed, okay, we're talking, then I would like try to get to know her using assumptions, right? And the reason I use assumptions rather than questions is because this is more interesting for a girl, just like you said, right? But also that helps you avoid the trap of coming off like interview mode. So what a lot of people try to do to get the girl to invest, to get her to keep talking, right, is they ask loads of questions like, so do you visit the shopping mall often? Do you study around here? Do you like to party at this nightclub? And like, I don't blame them if they're like very new, because actually it's very widely spread social advice. Like, that's how to get people to like you, is to ask them questions about themselves, right? But the problem is here is if you're cold approaching a girl in the middle of the street, she doesn't know you well enough to have any reason to want to give out this information, all right? So this way, by trying to get to know her in this more unique and more fun way, by guessing that she's a painter or like a ballet dancer or whatever, this is like, oh, that's interesting, that's funny, I want to be a part of this conversation, perhaps. She's more likely to, for sure. The other thing is by making these assumptions, and it's fine if you guess wrong as well, because that still sparks her curiosity, as in, oh, why did you make that guess about me? Because people are so interested in why, like you said, they like to be psychoanalyzed, and they're so interested in the impressions they're giving off to other people. So that might be enough to just hook her and be like, oh, why did you think that? All right, and then if you can carry on being funny and interesting, and then, you know, you're at the races. For sure.
Yeah, it's not so much about getting it right as much as it is about showing that you give a crap and that you're genuinely intrigued and, you know, want to know more. But if you do get it right, then, you know, that's even better, so to speak. So then, yeah, what do you do after that, Mr. Owen?
Yeah, sure. So another good reason that you want to get to know her is because you want to pretty much be giving off the vibe that although you like her appearance, you're not completely sold on her yet, right? So, you know, if you know, this is the sort of vibe you want to be giving off. Yeah, you look fantastic, but I wanted to see if, you know, you were a cool person, right? So, yeah, like if I think a girl looks sporty and then she turns out she's not sporty, I can, like, you know, show like some like perhaps some like faux disappointment or something. But this is the overall vibe that you want to be, once you've got your introduction. The overall vibe you should be having is you finding out if she's good enough for you and your £10 million check. All right? So that's pretty much the process.
Well, you see, let me just say, so, because I get this a lot with guys I coach, which is that because they walk into it with the mindset of, I'm seeing this girl, so I'm going up to her to get her number. That's what I want. So what they don't realize that they're saying is that automatically off the bat, without knowing a damn thing about this girl, like, I don't know, is she as racist can be? Is she really dumb and stupid? Does she have political views you don't agree with? Is she just like a really uninteresting person to be around? They don't know any of that, but automatically it's like, you're good enough. And if you're saying to this woman that she's just good enough immediately, then it kind of means that you're devaluing yourself then, because you don't really need to know much about her to know that she's good enough for you, which kind of implies that you're not, you don't really have that much status yourself, so you can't really come at it like that at all. You know, it has to be from a perspective of, here I am good, I'm great, I'm decent. Are you decent enough to be with me? Are you good enough to be with me?
Yeah.
And it can be like kind of hard for guys to wrap their heads around, because it's like, if you're some guy and you're really new to all of this, it's like, no, I just want a girl. Like, I just want a girl. How the hell am I supposed to act like I'm all picky and choosy when I'm a virgin and I've never had sex with somebody, or I have sex like once a year or so, and girls just don't want me? I don't really get it.
Yeah, but even if you are already sold on this woman,
Yeah.
like,
I
the
understand.
best way for you to get this result is to do your best to try, and I advise people to think of like 5 things they would look for in an ideal girlfriend, and then use the opening conversation to screen if she has those 5
And screen
things.
for that.
Right? And even if you don't care, because she's just that hot, like, still screen her to have the 5 things. It will make her like you more, the fact that you are doing that and you're not completely sold on her.
Yeah, to anyone who's listening, you'll be surprised at how powerful this actually is. Like, if girls get the impression that there's something that's important to you, and that if they don't have it, then you're going to be disappointed and will go another way, you will be surprised at how much then they'll be inclined to try and prove to you that they have whatever it is that they think you're looking for. You will be surprised. And like, their investment will go up, as opposed to just knowing that they have everything you need. You know, because then there's no fun, there's no challenge, you know, it's just not that interesting.
All right, so we don't have so much time on this episode to go like really deep into this sort of thing, or do we have more time, or no?
Now maybe 5 minutes or
Okay,
so.
because we've written an ebook which goes into depth, right, about how to approach women during the daytime and during the nighttime, and the differences between those two. So if this isn't in depth enough, then we can encourage you to download that. It's called How to Meet Women Anywhere, and it's at gameglobal.net/meet-women-anywhere. Okay, and this explains other steps about
We'll have a link to it in the description.
Yeah, and explains other steps like how to screen, and like examples of this, and how to like tease if she doesn't give like the answer that impresses you, and things like this. But I think as far as this podcast, we should round it off by explaining how to close, quote unquote, close the interaction. And I think you even touched upon it, is that like most guys, they're going in there and then they just want to get the contact details, right? And then that is their win. That's how it works with your like coaching clients normally, if they're new. Whereas with me, my goal, the goal is to spend time with the girl, all right? So I'm going in there, and providing that she is the kind of girl that I want to hang out with, then my goal is to spend as much time as possible with her, right? So don't make the mistake what a lot of nervous people, including myself when I was new, make, is like, as soon as you think she likes you enough to get the phone number or the Instagram or whatever, then you just get that and then you run away, right? And you run away with your victory. Yes, the digits, success. But then it's not really a success, is it? Because we're not in there to fill our phone book with as many flaky numbers as possible. We're there to develop deep relationships with the girls, right? So your first target should be to see if the girl is available for an instant date. Now, what an instant date is that you take the girl perhaps for like a coffee or somewhere where you two can sit down and talk for a longer time, all right? Now, once you're sat down together, this kind of changes the whole dynamic of the interaction. Now, this isn't this strange, crazy thing that happened, like man approached me on the street. Now it's pretty much the same vibe as an actual date. You'd agree with this, Kieran? So this is something to aim for.
Yeah. One thing though, you said one thing you said to see if she's available for an instant date. So I'd like to clarify how exactly you do that, because what I have found works is not to say, hey, would you like to go on a date with me?
No.
But it's more along the lines of, come on, let's go for a coffee. It's like, it has to be phrased as more of a command from my experience. Like, let's go and do this. Come on, let's go and do that. With like an assumption that she's going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
All of the instant dates I've had that have been successful have come because I basically told the woman to go with me in a way that was friendly but confident and assertive.
Yep. Or I was about to get a coffee.
How about you? How do you specifically?
Well, probably
Yeah.
I would.
Yeah.
I would I would ask her, what are you doing in this exact moment? And I word it like that because if you ask, what are you doing today, then she'll probably come up with like something that she's doing in a couple of hours or in half an hour or something. But if you say, what are you doing this exact moment, then she's going to be more detailed. So if she's saying, oh, I'm meeting up with my boss in 30 minutes and I'm just looking around the shops, then that's a green light for you to invite her somewhere, right? If she says, I'm waiting for an Uber, it's arriving in 60 seconds, then now you know that probably taking her for a coffee date is out of the question, and probably you want to be swapping contact details in the next 30 seconds. Okay? So that's a good phrase for you to use. And then from there, like you just said, oh, I was about to grab a banana smoothie or a coffee or whatever. Just 10 minutes, come with, and then probably like a little tip, but only if you promise to be nice. Then I have to go. But then I really have to go, like something to make her seem like it's not a big deal, and for her to be like, okay, that's not a big deal. Let's go. Something like that. Okay, but obviously a lot of the time the girl's going to be busy, and from there, you can swap contact details. I'm really big on swapping social media, not phone numbers. And we have a massive blog post explaining why that is. We won't go into that in this podcast. But the one final tip I want to leave on this podcast is that when you're swapping contact details, you must explain you're doing it because you want to contact her again and invite her out. Okay? So many guys make the mistake of, let's swap Instagram, and then that's it. And it's kind of strange, and then you have a lot more work to do when it comes to the actual texting. If you say, you seem like the sort of girl who would like to go, I know this amazing cafe, would you like to go sometime maybe? She says yes. Okay, what's your Instagram? I'll text you, alright? That's much more effective way
Something
of swapping
I would like
contact
to
details.
add to that.
Yeah.
Something I'd like to add to that is, where possible, you want to get contact details in the middle of the interaction rather than at the end.
Yes.
So if you wait to the end of the interaction till you get her details, so let's say you're on the instant date with this woman and it's going really well, blah blah blah, but the time has come for it to end. If that is the moment that you ask for the contact details, there is a damn good chance that her brain will start to think, so the reason he approached me was to get my number. Now, or was to get my details. Now, I was actually explaining this to a client like literally yesterday or so. He's like, why is that a big deal? And this is what I said to him. From your perspective, you've gone out to do day game and to meet as many women as possible. Fine. But that's not from her perspective. She's just living her life and has just happened to meet this man. Now, what she wants to feel like is that she's just living her life, you're just living your life, and you just happen to have seen each other. And as you've happened to have seen each other, this bond is forming. And as this bond is forming, you two are just getting to know each other, and you're like, oh my God, we really need to hang out more and more and more. And in that kind of instance, which is basically what you tend to see in rom-coms, a man and woman are at a supermarket, she drops a mango, it rolls by his foot, he picks it up, and then they start talking. In that kind of situation, it's like you're having a great time, and then, oh my God, let's go and do X, Y, and Z. Yeah, you would really like this club. let me get your details. I'm going to invite you to this club. And then boom, then you immediately go back to what you were already talking about. Like, I remember years ago, and this was a long time ago as well. It's like, it must have been 10 years ago, whenever the hell it was. I was in Birmingham and I met 2 Asian girls. And I ended up spending 3 or 4 hours with them. We went to some clubs and we had an absolutely great time. Me and these Asian girls, we had a great time. Then at the end of the night, I said to them, hey, so can I get your numbers? And then literally, they looked at each other and went, oh, I see. That's what you wanted. And it kind of weirded me out at the time. I was like, okay, so I guess we'll never see each other ever again then. And I kind of made a little joke about it, but basically I didn't get either of their numbers and I never saw them again. Now, looking back, if that same scenario happened now, I would joke my way around that and still actually get their numbers. But the fact still remains that because I asked them at the end, they were like, that's why you did it. Whereas, if, let's say, we were in the middle of club number 2, then I got their details, and then we just carried on partying, they wouldn't have thought that at all. So, yeah, that is something for you to be aware of.
And also, you want to spend as much time
in Jakarta.
You want to spend as much time as possible with the girl as well, right? So, if you just run away after you've got the number, then you're shooting yourself in the foot, really. Because the more time you spend with the girl, the more she gets to know you, the more likely she is going to be inclined to want to meet you again.
To respond when... it's another thing to remember as well. So, it's gone like this. One thing you really need to be aware of is you meet this woman, and when you're there, she's looking at you and she's smiling and oh, hello, Mr. Attractive Man, I like the look of you. And you think that she's going to think that forever. But if you leave after 30 seconds and she's giving you her number, then she's going to start to slowly forget who the hell you are. As she slowly forgets how cool you are, how sexy you are,
especially if she only has 30 seconds of memories to look back on. If she,
Yep.
You're still a stranger.
Then she'll message her friends and she'll say, I met this guy in the street. And then her friend is just going to assume the worst and go, oh my God, don't meet him. He's probably this, he's probably that.
Yeah.
All of these sorts of fears. You want to spend as much time with her as possible so you can give her as many reasons as possible to not think that you're this evil, weird, psycho, savage person who's going to rape her in her sleep or whatever kind of fearful thoughts might be entering her head. The more you spend with her, the less likely she is to actually have those thoughts. And the less time you spend with her, the more likely she is to have those thoughts. It's really that simple.
Cool. I think they understand that point. Unless we're doing the same on this podcast.
Sweet. So that is...
the longer we ramble on, the more they've heard. So we only really wanted to cover the basics in this podcast, right, Kieran? But as to repeat, we have an ebook for those who want to go deeper on this subject. The link is in the description. It's our How to Meet Women Anywhere ebook. But there's a lot of tactics, specific things to do. But I think the first thing that you mentioned in this podcast about feeling worthy enough to be there in the first place, if you don't have that, then none of these tactics are going to work, all right? Because your body language and your vibe, it communicates so much more than the words you say. So this is something that you should focus on initially, for sure. And how to feel like that guy, well, that's a whole different podcast.
And if you need help with that,
speak to Kieran.
Well, yeah. But then if you don't have time to listen to the podcast and you just want to know now, then drop me a line and I will help you. So Kieran Callum, Kieran at KieranCallum.com, or at any kind of social media is at Kieran Callum. Instagram is probably the best one. And I'm also very active in Facebook and the Telegram groups as well. So if you see me around, drop me a line and then I will help you in any way that I can. Anyway, see you later. Bye, everyone.